Hi guys. Right, so this video is about the FPGA options which we're releasing, but before I mention that, there is another video, because obviously with this case there's three options. There's the Raspberry Pi. As you can see, we've got the Raspberry Pi kit which converts it to mini ITX, powers it, etc. Comes in matching white as well. But I'm not going to talk about that because I've got another video which I'll probably link, but I've got another video all about that. But what I want to go through is, very briefly, is why. So I've done this chart. You can find this. I'll put this here. It doesn't really matter because you can find it on the Kickstarter page. The idea of this chart is to outline the differences between the systems. So basically, the FPGA's boards are designed to, well, they are basically recreations of the actual chips in FPGA form, which means they run the speed of the original hardware. So literally, it's like having the original hardware, and the operating system just runs on it. As opposed to, for example, the Raspberry Pi, where it is emulated. And as a lot of people know, I get upset when people think emulation is a dirty word, because it's not. It's amazing emulation, and they're so good. But of course, when it comes down to timings, which you're not really going to see, I'm trying to film this at 60 FPS, but you're never going to get the real understanding of just how good it is unless you see it. But I'm a big fan of the original machines, and even my 1000 can run a demo better than my WinUE PC with emulation. And you see big blocks of text, and it's dead smooth on the FPGAs and on the 1000, which is, the 1000 is 35 years old. And everything's really smooth on it. It looks just wonderful. Whereas the FPGA recreates that. And it is literally just like running the original hardware. So, what we have here, now you can't see the boards. I may put a couple of pictures up here so you can see the actual boards. But on the left hand side we have an UnAmiga ITX, and on the right hand side we have built into here is the Mistix. And they are both FPGAs. The UnAmiga is going to be a lot lower price than the Mistix. The Mistix is going to be more expensive. It has got some benefits. Now, if we're talking about performance, just forget it, because if you're interested in performance, it's not even worth you watching this. Go straight in, get the Raspberry Pi version, you're done and dusted. It's the cheapest of the lot, it's the fastest by a factor. I mean, it's just ridiculous, the difference in speed. Let's give you an example. So, if you remember the A3000, the UnAmiga is 2 times the speed of the original 3000. Okay, the Mistix is 2.8 times faster than the original 3000. The Raspberry Pi is 200 times faster. You know, it's an order of magnitude difference. So you can't compare them. What we try to do is recreate here the feeling of the original hardware and how it would run. And plus there's more benefits to it than this. Now, I'm a massive fan of the UnAmiga. I mean, the original UnAmiga I really like, but I mean, I love this now. It's been converted to mini ITX. It really does give a good feel, and but there are inherent issues with this, and let me explain the problem with the Mistix. That uses the D10 Nano, which is what the Mr. project used. And on that FPGA chip is an ARM controller, and then the ARM controller gives you access. Basically, it has a Linux core sitting there that runs everything, and so it has networking, it has USB, it will support any mouse, any USB controllers. It'll do anything like that. You can plug anything you like into it within reason, and the ARM controller takes care of it, and then the FPGA runs the core. Okay, so it maps everything. Now, the difference with the UnAmiga is it's using a much more basic and lower cost FPGA board, but that is just literally an FPGA board. So there is no USB, there's no nothing. It's literally, doesn't even have HDMI or anything like that. So the Mistix has HDMI, but this is just purely VGA output. Also, it's PS2 controller, keyboard and mouse only. You can use actually an Amiga mouse because you have two joystick ports on the back. You have stereo output on a jack. So it's very much like an original Amiga, but quite fast. I mean, it's probably, if you compare it to say a 4040, it's about half the performance of that. But that's still pretty damn quick. But for playing the bulk of games, etc., and bulk of demos, this is a fantastic little machine. Okay, and I absolutely love that. But whereas the Mistix has a whole load of extra functionality because of this ARM core. Now the great thing with this, now you'll notice here, I've got RTG display modes. Now the UnAmiga has been updated with the latest version of the mini development board, which has doubled the amount of gates on it. So you've now got room on there to put an RTG display. Now, I've got this running on this old LG monitor, okay, which is literally about 20 odd years old. This is brand spanking new, it's about a week old. So if you're looking on it and going, oh, that's a lot sharper, yeah, it's brand spanking new. This is 20 years old. Having said that, I actually really like this. Came off an offer. It was going to go in a skip, but actually it's a wonderful monitor. And the UnAmiga, but the UnAmiga will do this display as well. It can run on it can do widescreen and it can do full free like that. So it's only because of the way I've got the monitor set up here. Now, having said that, the RTG is new on these cores, so it's something that's literally just come along, and it's massive difference. So it's like you've got a graphics card in an Amiga 3000 running 2 or 3 times faster. It's just absolutely wonderful. So it's a great experience. Both of these have in the core, it's set up as a 6820 processor. There's no FPU. Okay, that's very important to understand. The UnAmiga gives you 2 meg chip RAM and 24 megabytes of fast RAM. The Mistix gives you 2 meg chip RAM and 256 megabytes of fast RAM. But if you put in one of the 128 megabyte cards, SD cards on the D10 Nano, that you can jump that to 384. Now to be honest, 256 it's more than enough. Let me see, RTG. Now, both of them can do like 1024, this is 1024 768. The Mistix can do it in 24-bit. I think 32-bit as well, actually. I've had it in 32-bit, but say 24-bit. The UnAmiga at the moment is only doing it 15-bit, but it still looks fantastic. 1280 by 720, 32-bit on the Mistix, and 15-bit on here. Obviously, stereo output on both. They both have joy ports, but the UnAmiga has 2 joy ports, so mouse and joystick, and the Mistix has only 1 joy port, which takes one of the USB connectors. Now, if you see the picture and you notice on there that the original Mistix development board's only got 4 USBs on it. Only shows 3 actually, but one of them is being used for the joy port. But that's been increased to 6, so 4 USB at the back, 2 internal USB, and the joystick port which is used. That's an Atari joystick port. Okay, so that's going to be there. We're debating the user port. I don't know about that yet. Right, video output I suppose is quite important. Both boards will output VGA. Okay. But the Mistix board will output HDMI, which is done through a cable that connects into the D10 Nano and plugs on the rear. Okay, so it's not the Mistix that does that; it comes straight out the D10 Nano. But networking's a big thing. It's almost nothing on here, but it does have a serial port on here, which is going to be used for certain things. So it does have a serial thing, which is what I don't want to use the term Wi-Fi because it's not like a Wi-Fi like you'd know, but it's a it does have a serial port on there, which means you can technically have TCP/IP networking, a serial speed, which is quite slow. So it's very basic, and I haven't actually got it to run yet. So don't buy this thinking you're going to get a networking machine. Okay, the Mistix does have networking on board. and theoretically it can run, the Amiga can run through it, but you have to think of it as more of a case of you can FTP to this machine to load software onto it, and it runs really fast. But so it's not a network machine. As I keep telling people, if you want a network Amiga, just get the Pi, yeah. But both of them will do us a certain amount of networking for getting data onto it. Okay. The other thing is, I think with the UnAmiga, if you want to do any massive changes to it, in an ideal world, you just take the SD card out of it, plug it in, put it onto your main machine, use your Amiga emulator, mount the drive, do the changes you want to put it back in and plug it back in again. That's the best way of doing it. That's the way of looking at the UnAmiga. Right, so Bluetooth, nothing on here. I believe it's a USB option, so just stick yourself a USB Bluetooth connector in here. I don't know if you want it. I've already mentioned the USB ports. Obviously there's nothing on there on the UnAmiga because it doesn't have the ARM controller. This has the ARM controller. The final version will have 6 USB ports and well, it's actually 7, but one's being used for the joy port. So now, let's go for the speed here. So 2.25 times the speed of Amiga 3000. It's according to Sysinfo. Yes, I know. On the Mistix 2.8, so so it's a nice. I mean, it looks like a 3000, performs twice as performance basically, so it's going to work well. You also got AGA, ECS, and OCS on both machines, which is really nice. The MIPS, about 10 MIPS, just over 10 MIPS on that, nearly 14 MIPS on this. On the Pi, you get 1000. Okay, so you know what we're dealing with here. There's no floating point unit, so you don't get any, you can't, there's no M flops for this, 0, whereas you've got 230 on the Raspberry Pi. Now I'm not trying to, now it's very important to understand, I obviously am a big fan of the Raspberry Pi. I spent the time doing the AMI hybrid software. I think it's a fantastic system, but these are just, it's a whole different league when you come into actually want to feel what it was like to have an Amiga. Obviously, there's the Vampire now. As I said, assuming the Kickstarter is a success, we'll be getting hold of one of the standalones. And if they don't do a mini ITX version of them, I'll make a fitting kit. And so I'll do a fitting kit anyway because of course a lot of people bought the standalones, and we'll do that. But of course, then the performance of that thing's off the chart. But obviously, the price is higher as well. But I think we've got a nice little product stack here. So you can start out the UnAmiga, okay? You can move up if you want to go to the Mistix with the D10 Nano, or later on go up to the Vampire. One thing out of all of these, and they've all got their own benefits, okay? Here's my feelings. If you want bare bones, just feels like an Amiga, the UnAmiga's wonderful. I mean, it really is. It comes with that Amiga thing. It's not got everything you want. Don't buy it if you're expecting it to be super fast. Okay, if you want it to be like a fast 3000, that's really it. That is just lovely, and I absolutely adore it. This thing though, the Mistix, now the thing with the Mistix. Now there are some more cores being done for the UnAmiga. Okay. So they are talking about doing other cores. I've heard talk of there being a Spectrum Next core for this. I don't know if that's going to happen. But there are other cores being more. But the Mistix, based on the Mister project, has 50 odd computer cores, something like that. And there are so many developers working on it. It's if you want to be able to run if you want to think of this is your retro machine that emulates any old computer you can think of, you really got to be going for the Mistix. Yeah, it is going to be the one to use. It's going to emulate fantastically. So in the real world, this is probably your best bet. Hardcore Amiga fans like me, not bothered about any of that. All I want is an Amiga. This is wonderful, and it's fairly cheap as well. I'm saying fairly cheap now. Again, obviously, if you buy the whole thing with us, we're not going to be cheap. This is not a cheap product. It's not expensive, but it's not going to be a cheap product. Because we manufacture it to make it look nice. The keyboards, it's the experience we're trying to create. Expensive packaging. We're trying to make something that stands out. Anyway, so that's the basics. Of course, they can both have joysticks. Yeah. With the Mistix, you have to map it initially. But let's have a look at a couple of these. Let me just run up a couple of these, and just to give you a feel for it. Hang on, let's move that over there. Now I judge everything. I figures, look. Let me get the mouse mat. Hang on. Doesn't like working on there without the mouse mat, does it? That's better. Right. Let's go run up C-bit. Okay. So. I'm not going to zoom in onto this, okay? In fact, yes I will. Let's zoom in a little bit actually. Now I don't know if this is how well it's going to pick up, but that text at the bottom, which is really important, is so smooth because it's FPGA. I hope it's picking up because I've set this to record at 60 frames a second, but this is running at 50, so it's not going to be perfectly a good definite example. But that's on the UnAmiga, which I mean to me is absolutely wonderful. Let me just kill that. Let's boot up this one, which is probably my favourite. I like the old demos. Let me just see if I can get this. Now you have to go by the text at the bottom. Yep. And watch the text. I mean, it's all about the text for me, the smoothness. Right. Now let's try mine in. Let's boot up. My only problem is my son may come running. You may hear him knocking at the door if he hears this game. If you watch how smooth this is. Hopefully you can see that. How smooth it is. It's absolutely wonderful. And back again. WHD load is fantastic, isn't it? Right, so let me zoom back out again. Oh, I suppose the interesting thing, let me just run up a couple of demos so you can see a demo on here. Now I'll run a different one on this with some big text on it. Now the key thing of this is, what you're really looking for on here is how smooth the text is. It's going to take a minute to get going, unfortunately, but hopefully you'll get a feel for this and see what it's like. This is a very old demo, actually. Good thing about WHD load is the way it just remaps everything, kickstart, graphics, everything just works brilliantly. Now I'm doing all this just to show you this next bit. Now I hope this comes out. Hope this comes across. Now if you run this on emulation, it's jerky. It's just not the same. But this shows you just what it's like. Right, here we go. Watch how smooth this is. Now that is absolutely perfectly smooth, and then it wraps up, and you can't do this in it. I've never seen an emulator be able to do this. Look at how fast the machine is. There you go, so that's that. That's 11. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of that, and now I'll show you the obviously It can run AGA. They both run this. You see I've got the icon for both of them. They both run this, no problem whatsoever. If you want to play games, I mean, it's literally just like the real thing. So, I mean, Amiga 3000 never had AGA. It never had AGA. And so, you know, so you basically got almost like an Amiga 3000 with AGA, twice as fast, maybe 3 times as fast in the case of this one. I say, watch this, show it's going. I'm only going to just do it. See how smooth that is, how good it looks? I mean, this is the AGA version. It's just amazing. I absolutely love it. Anyway, that's enough of that. What I also want to show you, and they will both do this, okay? But we also, for example, now, I would suggest you, if you're going to do this with Shapeshifter and want to run Mac OS, you want to run 7.5 because the 8 version doesn't run on these systems, not really quick enough to run the 8.0 version. But it runs the 7.5 beautifully, and they both do this. Both machines will run the Mac OS lovely. And this one's running at 1280 by 720, and so you can see it's just booted up. Let me go and see if I can find something. Open up programs. There is let me have a look in here. Prince of Persia, just to show its cable. Now do bear in mind this is running Shapeshifter at the speed of 50 megahertz 3000, and it's also O20 based. Remember, don't forget. But it, you know, it does these pretty good. Does it map? That's a good point. Does it map the? I'm not going to run the game. I'm just going to show you it booting up. There you go. Here you go. So it's running in 256 colours. Up it goes. See, that works. And then let me quit the game. Quit the emulator, shut down. There you go. Oh, I suppose let's forget this. I know, because I know a lot of people are going to be wanting to play games. Here you go. Oh, hang on. Got to remember the joystick. We're getting quite good at this one now. Maybe. Right, let's go and get, see if we can get some ghosts. There we go, let's go and get, oh, hang on, they've turned back. Oh, got me. Right, so, hang on, let's zoom back out. So, both of these, if you're about performance, of machine performance, don't bother with these. That's not what they're about. You want to go and get a Raspberry Pi to do the emulation because the Amiga system is just ridiculously fast. And the cheapest one out of the, as I said, we're doing 3 kits. One's a Raspberry Pi, you can see it's already done. It's got all the ports on it. This is ridiculously fast compared to these, okay? But these are accurate. I mean, it's literally just like using the original machines. So if that's what you want, then you work on your budget. Now at the moment I can't release the prices yet because there's still a few figures I haven't got to hand, and so I can't do that yet. I will release the prices later on, maybe before the end of the Kickstarter. And will I sell the boards separately? At the moment, especially in the initial stages, it's only going to be me supplying the boards because I'll be buying all the stock. But later on there will be other people. Hopefully, if it's a success, if it turns out to be a success and people like them, hopefully other people will come on board and sell them, and maybe do them cheap, because these cases are £200 each, but you can go and buy a mini ITX case. What was it, 25 quid, 30 quid, or something silly like that. So I understand that these are not cheap. But what I've tried to do is create an experience of having an Amiga 3000. I want to do a clone, whatever you want to call it, on your desk that performs like the 3000, even though it's twice as fast as the 3000, with a graphics card as well, because with the RTG it gives you this beautiful high resolution, high-ish resolution graphics, and it really does give a good experience. I mean, you know, you've got this nice. Now I'm on here, just so you know. Now I can't distribute this, and I don't know if you can see this actually, but on here I'm running Coffin OS, and it runs really well. I mean, okay, it doesn't run as well as on the Vampire, obviously, but it runs the user interface, and there's a couple of tweaks that you do. Don't have like the massive colour backgrounds and so on. I've got this nice 256 colour backdrop, but it will actually run it. So on here I've got a custom, it's an OS 3.1.4 on here, and on this one it's running, as I said, it's running Coffin OS. So it can handle it, and it runs nicely. So if you've used Coffin OS, then you know you're aware of what it can do and what it can't do. But it does run really well. So that's it. Now another thing is, obviously one question that will be, will I be doing operating system? Now obviously I'm shipping these machines complete with an OS. Let me put that back over here. With an OS, if you buy a complete machine, here they are. If you buy a complete machine with one of the boards, not only do you get the user manual, which is actually going to be quite a big, thick manual. Sam's doing a great job on that. But also it's going to be the AMOS guide as well, because one thing we are doing is making AMOS available. So if you go over to here, AMOS will be on all the machines. Here we go. See, so it goes straight into AMOS. And you can run AMOS on there. So that's going to be on all machines. We've had permission from Francois, although it is actually, he said to me it's open to anyone to use nowadays. But there you go, back to that. So this manual now, it's called Mastering Amiga AMOS, okay, which Phil South wrote a long time ago. And so what we've done is we've branded the cover. So the original cover is underneath. It's got like a double cover. But I wanted to, obviously, when you open the box, you see the same branding. So we've put that on the back and on the front and the back. But the inside, it's basically the same. Now, people may say, oh, well, yeah, but it's not been very well typeset. Unfortunately, the files are not available. So what we've done is we've taken the best copy of the PDF that's available out there, got permission from Bruce Smith Books to reproduce it, not for profit. We're not trying to make any profit out of this, literally just to include for free with the cases if you bought it, and if you want it, we can add it as an option for probably £10, something like that. It was, you know, about the cost of printing, but that's actually quite a good manual to go with AMOS. So, and you can boot, the idea is so that you can boot straight into AMOS if you want to, rather than coming to the Amiga, or, you know, boot to the desktop, or however you want to do it. Yeah, so hope you like these machines. FPGA for me is just a fantastic way of getting the recreation of the original computers. So if you're on a budget and you want FPGA, the UnAmiga version, that's probably the one for you. If you've got a bit more money to spend, then the Mistix is probably the ultimate, because you've got all these other cores and you can run loads of other machines that are on here with operating systems and so on. Try out old machines and see what they were like. Fantastic way of playing with old computers. And of course then there's all the games, there's all the arcades cores. This is probably the most flexible of the two. And of course you've got the network on it, so that if you obviously go to your normal machine, you can FTP files over to it and set it all up as much as you like. And so this is all round probably the best machine in the stack for those that where FPGA is important. Otherwise, then it's probably the Raspberry Pi, because it's the cheapest of the bunch. But again, if you're just looking for the core, I want an Amiga experience, you can't beat the UnAmiga. It's just wonderful. So obviously once I can release prices, it will be a bit clearer. But anyway, I hope you enjoy that. Gives you a bit of a feel for it. And wish me luck on the Kickstarter.